Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do an oil change and service on a Mazda CX9. So if you want to know where this goes and how to install it, then stay tuned. Before we get started, let me just go through the parts list, show you what you're going to need for this oil change and service. First thing being, good pair of safety glasses. I think they're extremely important for any type of service or mechanical work that you're going to do on your vehicle. Next thing you're going to need is something that can hold the oil that you're about to release from that vehicle. I think I purchased this from Walmart or AutoZone probably 10 years ago, but something like this that's got the capability to hold the oil. For the Mazda CX9, which is a 3.5 liter, and also for the Ford Edge, they hold 5.5 quarts. So I've got a 5 quart and I've got an additional 1 quart. I'm using the Mobil 1 high mileage 5W20. Check your owner's manual for your specification for your vehicle. I like the high mileage. I like synthetic. I'm not going to get into that on this video. You can probably see 20 of them on YouTube and they'll go pros and cons for using synthetic. All I'll say is that in over 30 years of doing oil changes with synthetic, I haven't ever had an engine seize up. So I'll just leave it at that. You need an oil filter. Again, brand to me, it's up to you. I use a Fram. I like the Fram because it's easy to handle. It's got a rough edge on the top, easy to put in place and tighten up, so I like the Fram. You're going to need some type of a tool to take off the oil filter with, whether it's the stick style or the one that slips over the top like this one with an extension and a socket. You're going to need a wrench. It can either be a socket or a regular wrench for your oil plug. You're going to need all these things. You're going to need a pair of gloves, rubber gloves. I use these because they really save your hands, and when you get ready to clean up, you pull these off and your hands will be perfectly clean. You're going to need some rags because no matter how good you are, you're going to get some spills. And then I have a couple other items that I add in on my vehicle for maintenance. I do fuel injector cleaner. I also wipe down the engine compartment with Armor All. There's a few things I go through. I check all the fluids, and if I need fluids, I add them. So anyway, that's what you're going to need to get this thing going. I'm going to go ahead and get the vehicle inside and get it up on the ramps. I use ramps. Some people don't use anything at all. They just climb underneath. Some people jack their vehicles up, put jack stands under them. It's up to you. It's whatever you're comfortable with. I use jack stands. So I'm going to go ahead and get the vehicle in, get it put up, and then I will be back in a few minutes. Okay, we've got the vehicle up on ramps. I've got everything in position. I use a drop cloth just in case there's any oil spilled on the ground, doesn't spill in my garage. I've got everything in place. I got all my tools down here. So I will go ahead and get in position and we'll go ahead and get the oil going. What I try to do is put it down here with me so that I don't have to come back up again, so I can actually drain the oil and change the oil filter at the same time. That doesn't work every time, but I try to do it. So and I keep a rubber hammer because it just makes it a lot easier to start it. And once you get it started, that's pretty much all you got to do. Make sure you got your catch pan in place. This out. You check your plug, make sure it's in good condition. If it's got a rubber inside seal, make sure you check it. If some of them have metal ring, that actually has to be changed. Notice that ring, that metal ring, is made of copper, and it has to be changed over time. This one is reusable. I just usually clean it up. Then I go ahead and I let this drain out. So I'll do that real quick and get prepared for the filter. I don't generally wait until every drop is out, but some people do. And if you think it makes that big a difference, then make sure you go ahead and drain out every drop. When it gets down to where it's practically not dripping anymore, then that's when I usually go ahead and put the plug back in. And it'll usually stop all the oil pretty quick. Tighten it back up because I don't want to forget it. So I generally do. There is a torque specification for this. I generally don't use it, but if you want to use it, figure out what it is and go ahead and torque it up. I'm going to go ahead and get the filter. So I'll reposition them just a little bit so I can do that. And this is the messy part. Generally, no matter what you do on this, you're going to make a mess. So be prepared for it. That's all I can say. That way you're ready to go. Do the best you can for centering it up. Then go ahead and give it a twist. Just no easy way to do it. I wish there were, and I wish I could tell you what it is, but there's just not. As soon as the dripping's down to where it's manageable for you, whatever that may be, then go ahead and take it off. It's still going to be, keep your rag in. And I always just turn my filter over so I can let it just drain out. And there'll always be some excess coming from the engine. Let that drain out as well. I do let that drain down pretty good. Make sure you take some of the old oil. Just go around that seal with that old oil. It helps that dry rubber seal back up. And generally what I do is I'll go ahead and wipe that top part around. I also check to make sure that the old rubber seal came off, because believe it or not, I've had it on an F-150 where that seal stayed in and it created quite a mess. Then I go ahead and start the new one, roll it up hand tight, and you can get it on pretty tight, hand tight. And then I just take my tool and I just snug it, and I mean snug it. You don't want to overdo this. I just put it on just about that much. That's it. Okay, so what I've got is I've drained the oil. I've put a new filter in place. I've got basically everything underneath the vehicle done now. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the video off and move everything up to the top, and then we will be back in just a few minutes. I don't move the vehicle until I put oil back in it. So it's still up on the ramps. I haven't moved it. I just get a stand. I've got a little two-step ladder. I just get the ladder and I go ahead and I put in about 4.5 quarts. That way you never put any kind of a strain on that engine. I never want to run the engine without oil, no matter what, even for a few seconds. So I go ahead and I go ahead and do this up here. A little bit high work, but at least I know that everything is safe and I don't have any issues. You can look on the side of these 5-quart plastic, and they've got a viewer on them. You can see how many quarts you've put in. So if you look right there, you'll see I'm about a quart shy of where I want to be. Let's That's pretty close right there. So I'll let that just drain just a little bit. Again, I'll have my rag, and I'm constantly wiping on the vehicle. You can see this is a 2007 with almost 170,000 miles on it. It's still pretty clean, and I'll clean it up even better before we're done. And I just use my rag, go underneath that, put the cap back on. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start it and run it for just a few minutes, get that oil circulating through the filter, and then I'm going to go ahead and pull it down, and then I will be back and show you how to top it off and then check all the other fluids, and we'll be ready to pull it out. Okay, we're back. I've got the vehicle down on the ground now. I recommend that you run the engine 3 to 5 minutes. Let that oil circulate really well through the filter, throughout the engine. Make sure that it's saturated before you check it the first time. So I've got that finished, and now I'm going to go ahead and pull the dipstick and check it before I put any oil in it at all. I'm always going to make a check at 4.5 quarts, right on the front of the engine. It's the same on the Ford Edge. These are the same exact engines. They go 3.5 on the 2007, and the 2008 they go to 3.7, but they're basically the same engines. Pull that out, and it's just right on the end of the dipstick, which is just about right for being about a quart low. So we'll go ahead. You can leave. Sometimes I leave the dipstick out before I put the rest in. That way I don't have to clean it again, but it's no big deal. So we'll go ahead and put this in completely. And then I've still got that other quart left to top it off and make the difference. And then again, it doesn't matter what kind of oil you're using. If you're using a non-synthetic, then you're going to have to watch your mileage a little bit closer. I use the synthetic, and I go every 5,000 miles. Even though I could probably get away with doing it a little less often, I still do it every 5,000 miles. Matter of fact, I keep it on even increments. So when I get close to 70, which I'm now 170, which I'm at right now, I'm going ahead and doing it again. Plus, I've got a trip this weekend, and I want to have fresh oil. It's always good just to give it a minute just to settle a little bit. It won't make a whole lot of difference, but it make a little bit of difference. And I'll even drive mine for a while, then check it again the next day or in a couple of days, just to make sure. You never know. You may have a little oil leak that you didn't know you had, and it's just always good to keep checking your oil. I check my oil and my fluids just about every time I fill up my gas, just about. And you can see I'm just right at the full mark right there, which is just about perfect. And I've got a half a quart left, so that's just about right. And again, this is an older vehicle, so it does actually use just a little bit of oil in between services. Not a lot, but a little bit. And I kind of clean everything as I go. I'm kind of a clean freak. So we'll get that cleaned up out of the way. So that's basically it for the oil change. But while I'm in here and while I'm doing these things, there's several things that I do. I check my radiator fluid, my antifreeze, and I make sure it's on the full mark. I also check my fluid for the brakes. I check my fluid here for the power steering. I check my connections on my battery to see if I've got any corrosion on them. I don't check my air filter every single time, but I check it about every other time or every third time. And I've got a K&N filter on this, which is a reusable air filter. So it's a lot better than your paper filters. And then I just service it and put it back in. I don't ever really replace it. So I checked all of these, and all of them look like they are right on the money. All of my fluids are right on the money. And the last thing I do before I call it a day is I wipe the engine down. And I actually do it with Armor All, and I've done it forever. And I work my way from the outside in. And I know it's probably a little bit extreme, and a lot of people will say, well, you don't really need to do it. But I do it, and that's why my 2007 looks like it's a 2013. And people are always asking me what year my vehicle is, and when they find out, they generally have a pretty surprised look on their face. So I'll go through and I will wipe down all the engine, make sure everything's good. I check my belts. I do all the normal maintenance things that you should do when you're in underneath the hood. And it's really simple. You don't have to be a trained mechanic, to check and make sure your hoses are good. Make sure you don't have any leaks or don't have any oil drops underneath your vehicle. It's just not that difficult to check and make sure that your belt's good. Just flip the belt just a little bit with your hand and make sure it's not cracked anywhere. Pretty simple stuff, but this routine maintenance and things like oil changes and the things that I do to my vehicles, brake jobs and other things like that, that's how come you can get 300,000 miles out of a vehicle. And that's what I like to do. I like to get the most mileage out of a vehicle, and when I'm ready to get rid of it, it's still worth something. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any comments, please put them down in the remarks column. And if you liked what you saw, give us a like or even subscribe. Thanks a lot, and have a great day.